Fran Johnson.
The referral, even a past client.
Oh, what does that do that?
A stranger.
Okay. There we go.
Remember, write down things that you learned.
Hi, my name is Gene Rivers, and I'm here today to tell you how to develop your listing skills to a very high level. And after you've done that, you'll be able to go in and take over market share. Number one, the best source for listing leads is from your sphere and past client list. The fact is, the people you know the people that are going to be moving, whether it's at church, school, work, friends, relatives. Focus on making sure they understand you're in the listing business. Create a pre-listing package that you would give every seller, but rename it your guide to selling homes successfully in your market. And then give that to people in your database that you know have influence, that has collateral materials that they can give to their friends and refer you. Step two, focus on an area, product, or price range. When you develop mastery of a product or an area, you will much more quickly succeed in those areas. And in that area or in that product or price range, focus on the FSBOs in that area, the expireds in that area, door knock in that area, geographic farm in that area, and I'm talking a fairly tight area, so that the people in that area will really identify with you as someone who can help them sell property for top dollar with low hassle in a short amount of time. Now we're at number three. Everyone today that's looking at hiring an agent, whether it's a referral, even a past client, or a stranger who's gotten your name somehow, they're going to check you out on the web. So you need to make sure that your website is competent, that you've got basic, powerful content in there, and specifically that on the landing page, the very opening page, there is a direct offering to a seller. Find out what your home is worth, get a guide to selling your home. But if you don't do that, you're going to miss opportunities because people will get your name, check your website out, and go, I don't think so. I've seen a lot better sites. Fix your website with a database that you are working on a consistent basis. And with a tight focus, you build your reputation. If you're visible, you will find you will take over more and more listings, and in a very short amount of time, 12 to 24 months, you will own that market. That's how you take market share.
What you learned from the video. Okay, tell me.
Fix my website.
Fix your website.
Same.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest issue is fix the website.
Okay.
Focus on your sphere.
Focus on your sphere. Without that sphere and without that contact, the website is invisible, right? Okay. Anything else?
An expert in a very specific area.
Yes. Why do you think that's important? The expert, what did you say?
You need to know your materials so people will trust you.
Know your materials. Anything else? So if you go into an area and you see a heavily concentrated number of signs in just one neighborhood, you think you're less visible or more visible? More visible. If you take those same number of signs and you spread them out, you think you're more visible or less visible? Less visible, right. That's what he's talking about, is picking an area, getting expert and highly visible in that small area, and once you've taken that market, then expand it. And get highly visible there, and then expand it, and get highly visible there. Does that make sense? Then you become highly recognizable, and guess what? Then a lot of that traffic goes to your website, and it increases your visibility. Does that make sense? Okay. So, let's move on to our pre-list presentation. And there are a couple of things that the pre-listing packet does. It is very effective in like setting your position as their real estate expert of choice. The pre-listing packet does basically two critical things. It pre-sells you, and it saves you time. So the materials are designed to build confidence in you. It's designed to answer their questions and objections like in advance of you showing up at their door. And then a strong pre-list package will make the consultation experience a lot smoother, probably shorter than it otherwise would. So what I want you to do is get out your copy and let's take a look at this guide to selling your home. And we're going to go through that and try to understand it. And then we're going to take a break and let you practice with each other. So you're on page, mine's 16. What is yours? Is that what it is? Okay, good. So page 16. And this first page, it's all about you. And what I want you to do is take about a minute and let's scan through these items. And then we're going to go through them point by point. So let me give you just a minute to read that. Okay, so let's go through each one of these points. The first one, taking time to understand your wants, needs, and expectations. Answering questions, returning your phone calls and emails the same day, and being honest with you at all times. What does that do? Why is that point important to communicate to the seller?
Builds trust.
Builds trust. Any other comments?
You can communicate with them and let them know what's going on.
It helps them to set an expectation that you're going to be there following up with them. Yes. So number 2, obtaining the highest possible price for your house in the shortest amount of time. Why is that point important?
That's the product you're selling. That's why they're hiring you.
That's why they're hiring you. They're thinking you're wanting to get in there and do it low just so you can sell it fast and make a commission, right? But your goal is the same as theirs. It's to get the highest price you can. And with the least convenience. Because is it inconvenient for people to sell their house? Why?
They have to buy a new house.
They have to buy a new one.
They have people coming in out of their house and they have to leave. That is.
It disrupts their life, because yes, they have to leave at inconvenient times. What else do they have to do? They have to pack up all their stuff. They have to keep their house clean all the time. Yeah, and sometimes if you have kids, that's really a challenge, right? So yes.
For 25 years, could you imagine?
So when you shorten that time, it shortens that inconvenience, correct? So advising you on pricing and staging once I've evaluated your home thoroughly against the market. Talk to me about that one point.
It's their house sold quicker sometimes.
Gets their house sold quicker.
For the price of it.
Mm-hmm. And if you're staging it for more money, just like our stager rep said this morning. And then it also lets them know that you're going to be researching the market, and that segues into this next point: implementing a comprehensive marketing plan to expose your house for buyers. So you're going to advise them on pricing and staging. So what that means to them is that you're going to be doing comprehensive research about the pricing of their home. You're not just pulling a number out of the air. It's based on what the market says, and you're going to help them with how to best present their home to the public market. So you're going to help them detail their house, just like you detail a car when you get it ready to sell to somebody. And then exposing their home to the largest number of buyers. What does that say to them?
You know what you're doing, they're gonna get referrals.
Okay.
Well, you're not just gonna list it and then go away. You actually
And never see the whites of your eyes again, right? That you're actually going to be back there working. Yes, because you're going to be marketing the property. And then coordinating the home showing process with your family's needs in mind. What does that say to them?
Because you're putting them first.
You're
It's
putting
about
them
And
first.
what their needs are.
You're putting them first. While at the same time advising them that they do need to make it available as much as possible to that buyer that's coming in, right? So it's a balance act as you go through this. But yes, that communicates we care about you. Presenting all offers and advising you on terms and contingencies contained in the offer. So what does that say to them?
Just make sure they understand all the stuff like that the buyer wants, or as like just in case, like if something comes out, the buyer wants a certain thing, just explain to them, make sure they understand it, and then just make sure they get all the offers so that they can pick which one they want.
Fully informed that one.
Yes, to make sure that they understand what those offers say and what that means. And you were going to say?
That's what explain contingency, because I think most people don't understand what, they think that they're just going to get a price and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot more negotiating that goes on besides just here's the price of the house.
You're going to be there explaining what all the terms mean and helping them negotiate. And what it says is, I'm going to be there with you through this process, and I'm going to give you my expertise. I'm not going to leave you alone just to decide all by yourself. I'm going to make sure you understand what you're signing and why this is good for you or not. Okay. So negotiating on your behalf for the best offer, what does that say?
Keeps them in mind, or it's about them.
It's about them. It keeps them in mind.
Getting their top dollar.
Getting their top dollar, that actually ties into point number 2. It kind of repeats that, doesn't it? So you're going to be there to help them negotiate in their behalf. It makes that a comfortable process between them and the buyer for you to be that mediator in between, and then you're working for them. So scheduling and coordinating completion of the contingencies and inspections and monitoring the buyer's loan process. What does that say?
That's easing their fears that the closing will actually happen.
Yes.
That the buyer's not going to abandon the offer.
Yes. It's letting them know that even after the contract is signed, that you're going to be working to make sure they get to the closing table. Yes. And there's lots and lots and lots of details that go on between contract and closing. And actually, if you pull out a big long list and show them everything that needs to happen, they will know that you're earning your money right there. Okay? So, that's really important. And it's important for them to know, where the buyer is in the loan process as well, and keeping on top of that. Because I know there have been deals where agents do not follow up. The listing agent doesn't follow up on the buyer's loan process. They leave that to the buyer agent. And sometimes that buyer agent doesn't always communicate back to the listing agent what's going on. And if you can catch something early in the game, first of all, sometimes you can catch that and turn that from a deal that will fall apart to a deal that will close. Or if you catch it early enough, at least you can go ahead and, move away from that transaction and get that house back on the market so they don't lose market time. So it can be either way. So it lets them know that you're going to be on top of that to make sure that the buyer's loan process is going smoothly, because if the buyer can't get their loan, what happens to the deal? It goes south in a large hurry, right? So, coordinating and supervising the preparation of all real estate closing documents and guiding you through the closing process. So that's just sort of repeats, what you've been telling them, making sure that you're going to be on top of that you're the traffic cop, and that you're making sure that each spoke of the wheel is coming in to make sure we get to the closing table. And then during the entire listing from start to finish, always representing your best interest, which makes them feel comfortable that you are on their team. Okay, so it's that what it says is all about you. That's the title of the page. Okay, so let's turn over to the next page and talk about getting ready to list and helping the seller prepare to list the house. It's all about the price, the location, the condition, the competition, and the timing effect of property values. So let me give you a minute to read that page, and then we're going to talk about those points as well. So about 2 minutes. Look up when you're ready. Okay, so the top of this page says, get ready to list. And when they're getting ready to list, the number one question they're going to ask is, what will it sell for? Okay, so the market analysis is going to say how much the home is worth. And what you're going to tell them on this page in your pre-list package, that I will advise you on pricing after my thorough analysis of your property compared to the market. And with my recommendation, you will make the final decision. So there are 5 factors that affect the value of a property. So let's go through those. And, okay, so I'm going to just pick some 2s or 3s, and then you guys get ready to answer me about that, okay? So the price based on recent sales. So comparable homes in the area that have recently sold are how buyers and their agents will determine the fair market value of your home. So tell me a little bit about that. How does that affect the value of a property?
By giving you something to go by, setting like the standard of pricing, I guess, comparable.
Comparable homes gives you data to go by, because you know what they sold for or what they're on the market for, right? And so location back here. Location is one of the most important factors in determining the value of your property. How does location affect?
We also want to look at like good areas or like area like certain schools too. Sometimes that family. So you know, if they're in a good area where there'll be more buyers or more offers, people want that area where like the school is, a good school is.
Okay, good areas or desirable school districts. So tell me, what defines whether an area is good or not?
What the buyer wants.
What the buyer wants?
Growth.
Growth,
Convenience.
convenience, convenience to
Shopping.
roads, shopping,
Their job.
jobs. Anything else about location?
Whether it's in the city or the
Taxes.
Taxes. More taxes or lower taxes? Yeah. Okay. And if you're in an area where there may be a lot of mobile homes and industry around that residential property, does that affect it more than being in an area where they're just all residential single-family homes around it? Does that affect? Yes. Yes. Okay. So, and if you're in an area where people keep their property up, does that make a difference versus being in an area where people don't keep their property up so much? Yes. Okay. So then we're on number 3. The condition of the property affects the price and speed of the sale. They have 2 points under that. Prospective buyers often make purchases based on emotion, so first impressions are important. I'll advise you in optimizing the physical appearance of your home to maximize the buyer's perception of value. So how does that affect the value of the property? That condition. You should be able to answer that because you just had a lady here saying it.
Well, I'll give you an example. We listed our house in the spring because we had lots of trees and a driveway that went straight uphill, and no one would buy our house in the winter or fall because of the leaves. And if it was icy or snowing, no one would want to shovel our driveway.
Okay.
So that was the impression we did not want people to have.
That was an exterior condition, right?
When you know, move in ready. A lot of buyers don't want to have to spend a lot of time and money to move into a home to have to redo things.
Yes.
Some do, some don't. But you want it to be move-in ready,
Yes.
a simple transaction.
People will pay more for a move-in ready house than they will for a house they have to go in and do something to. Because for them, time is money.
Right.
Okay, so it's not just about the cost of doing it, it's also about the cost of them having to stop and do it.
Right.
So they will pay more for that. Yeah. And then the competition. Prospective buyers are going to compare your property, both the condition and the price, to other active listings in and around your neighborhood. And in order to get the buyer's attention away from your competition and focused on your home, we will be competitive by properly pricing and staging your home. And that's all about the competition. So how does competition affect the value of a property?
Page 10.
That's the principle of substitution.
The what
Just
now?
having passed my exam, that's the principle of substitution. If there are other houses around you that are cheaper, that are pretty much exactly the same, they're not going to buy your house.
Yes. So, first of all, if there's not any competition, how does that affect the value? Does it go up or down?
And
If there's no competition, does the value go up or down?
so,
Up, because there's nothing else to buy, right? But if you have plenty of competition, more houses to buy and fewer buyers, so that means you have fewer buyers with money to buy these houses that are out there for sale. Does the value go up or down?
Supply and demand.
It's supply and demand, exactly. That's a principle in all sales, right? If there's a lot of supply, the price goes down. If there's a shortage of supply, the price goes up. And real estate is no different than that. Yes, you're right. If the competition is priced, if the buyer sees your competition as a better value than you, and that's going to mean in price and what it offers, then they're going to move to the competition. So part of what you're telling them here is I'm going to help you get there so the buyers see you as the best value out there. And that is always price and condition. Okay? And then timing. So this is a point you were talking about in selling your house in the spring, as opposed to any other time of year. But it wasn't really because the seasonal flow of real estate, because we do have a higher peak in the spring and then a shorter peak in the fall and sort of lower in between those times. It wasn't about that for you. It was about what that looked like for the exterior of your property, especially your steep driveway.
Yeah, exactly. Having azaleas blooming rather than having a whole bunch of leaves to rake.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I will tell you that is an important point, because I had a very good friend, after she went through 2 other realtors, because she did not like my staging advice that I gave her to fix something on the exterior of her home that I thought the buyers would think was a structural problem. She did not want to spend the money to fix it. And after 2 sessions of 2 realtors that she listed for 6 months at a time, she finally called me and said, I think you're the only one that can do it. So I worked it out where we were able to fix, that little cosmetic piece on the side of her house. It was a little bit expensive, and she didn't have the money to do it. So we worked it out. And she had kind of a steep driveway, not terrible. When she got up it was kind of level. But when she called me, she really needed to go ahead and get it sold. So when did we list it? January. Mm-hmm. What did we have that year?
Big snowstorm.
Big old snow. And Fran Johnson was over there shoveling her driveway. So, and it was one of those that was powdery snow and then ice on the top of it, so it froze up. Luckily, when you have that, you can push a shovel down into it and the whole thing just falls off. But yes, I raked off her steps and raked off some of her driveway so people could get up there. So sometimes you're more than a realtor. And so timing is important. But more than seasons of the year, that timing could also be where we are economically.
Right now we're in bidding wars, aren't we?
We are. Mm-hmm. But in 2009, wow, the market changed for us in this country like it hadn't been for 30 years prior. So that was, sort of a new experience for us. So the economic downturn there, and then people having to sell their houses, they didn't really have a choice, about, we didn't have a choice, they didn't have a choice about where we were economically in this country. And even now, we don't have that choice. It's where the economic conditions were. In 2009, 8, 9, and 10, the market was low, and you just have to fit that. And so that affected the values of the property, and it affected them down. But now, we're in a shortage of inventory, and right now the market looks pretty good, and so that is affecting the values up. But what goes up must come down. So we will go into a shift at some point in time. Just need to be ready for that and know how to address it. So that's really important. Out of these 5 factors, which 2 can you change?
Price and condition.
Price and condition are the only 2 that you can change. You cannot change any of the others. Can't move the house, can't change the economic conditions, and people are not going to take their house off the market just because you're owning. Okay? So the only 2 things that you can control is price and condition. So those are the 2 things you have to focus on, making sure they fit into where all the other things also are affecting value. Make sense? Okay. So let's move to the next. So we're getting ready to sell, and it's about the price. So we're not going to talk about the actual CMA part of, your presentation. That's going to come in another separate module later. You'll just concentrate all your efforts on just how to figure out the price of the property. But what we're going to do is determine how this sets this up. Get ready to sell the price. A well-priced home creates interest, attracts buyers, generates showings, produces offers, and all very quickly. An underpriced home will attract buyers and may sell quickly, yet it may detract buyers who wonder what's wrong with it because it's priced so low, as well as it may be overlooked by buyers that are looking in a higher price range. An overpriced home will be evidenced by a lack of interest, few showings, no offers, a longer time on market, and possibly price cuts, which look bad from a buyer's perspective. So what we want to talk about are the pros and cons of the overpriced versus the underpriced, and then I want you to tell me what you feel like the benefits are of a well-priced home. And we're going to look at this chart a little bit and explain that, because understanding how to explain this to a seller, helps give them a visual of where they need to price their home. So the underpriced home is sort of bargain basement pricing. Okay, and when you're pricing too low for the market, when it's talking about buyers may miss it, well, that works for underpriced and overpriced, because if you have a buyer that's looking for a certain thing within a certain price range, if it's under here, then that buyer is going to miss that window. If it's up above it, they're still going to miss that window. So if it has the features that the buyer is looking for, and they're looking within that price range that's pretty normal for those features, then if it's out of that window, they're going to miss it, whether it's underpriced or overpriced. Does that make sense? When you go online today, you're looking in price range blocks, and if it's under or over, it's gonna get missed. And then the other thing is, if it's underpriced, some buyers will wonder what in the world is wrong with that. Why are they selling that so low? What cost am I going to have to incur? If I buy this home because it's priced so low, there must be something wrong with it. So that's one thing. It might get missed. But the other thing is, you're going to wind up with, usually a lower price than you normally would have if you just price it at market. So, and then an overpriced home, when you're overpricing, it's not only going to get missed, but what happens is, what shows up is things that we just talked about. Your competition shows up as a better value for what your buyer is looking for. So what you do when you overprice is they'll come and look, and then they'll go look at others, and then that overpriced home just helps sell the one that's the better value. So, and then the seller stays on the market a long time, and when the house is on the market longer than average days on market in any market area, then people, again, they start to wonder what's wrong with it. It extends their days on market, and extended days on market usually winds up being a price reduction and a lower price than they would have gotten at the end of that than if they were priced it right to begin with. Okay? So, I want you to talk about now the well-priced home. What are those benefits to a seller?
A lot of offers.
A lot of offers.
Faster sale. Quicker sale.
A quicker sale. They actually wind up with probably the highest price they could get, too. So let's talk a little bit about this graph and what that means. If we're pricing at market value, what this is saying is that attracts about 60% of your buyer market. If you price even 10% above that, How much buyer market are you losing? 30%. If you price 10% below, how much do you gain?
15%.
Only 15%. Okay? So what that says is if you're pricing at market, you're attracting the highest number of buyers that you possibly can at the highest price. So at this price, it's pulling in the most buyer market. And if you price above it, then you're losing some of that, and you're not going to have as many people looking at the home. They're going to get just overlooked, and if you underprice it, you don't gain that much. So when you're doing your market analysis, what you're looking to do is hit this window, because that's the highest attraction value that you can get from a price point. And so that brings you in the most number of buyers, and the most number of buyers brought in usually means you'll get an offer. So, all right, so next page. Get ready to sell the condition. So this is all about the staging. You should have plenty of information about that now. So, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, and most buyers' decisions about the property they see within the first 15 seconds of entering the home. And homes in great condition attract more interest in offers and tend to sell for more than homes in less than great condition. So I'm going to give you just a minute to read over that page of staging, and let's just talk about that. Okay, so let's talk about the condition. What's the importance of staging?
I said it's incredibly important.
Incredibly important. Why is that?
Makes the home more valuable.
It makes the home worth more money, more valuable, yes. What else?
It just doesn't make it takes away the personal items like in your house. Makes it more like neutral. Yeah.
Okay. It takes away the personal and makes it appeal to the wider buyer market. Yes. Good point.
I was just going to say, if the buyer can see themselves in the home, they can form an emotional attachment to the home.
It helps the buyer form an emotional attachment because staging is designed to help them see themselves in the home. What else?
It's nicer.
It looks nicer. It makes you stand out in the crowd, right? Yeah. And what does it say where does it say to start from?
Outside.
Outside, the curb appeal. So I made this mistake really early in my career when I first got on the staging junket, which was before staging was a buzzword. I think it was even before Dress Your House for Success, which is Barb Schwartz's first video. I went in and saw the house and saw that it needed stuff doing to the inside. So I went in and gave the seller a list, and he did it. But I didn't have him do some of the things on the outside. And if the buyer can't get past the outside, they won't come on the inside. So the curb appeal on the outside, the exterior, is just as important as the inside. Might be even more important. Because if they don't like the exterior, they'll just drive on by instead of wanting to come through the front door. Okay. So, good. Let's go to questions for you. So now we're going to give the seller some questions for them to fill out. So let's just talk about this. What's the most important thing you're looking for in your listing agent? Find what answers to that question be good for you to know.
That's an expectation.
Isolate the objection.
Isolates the objection. What else?
You want to know what they want so you can hit that point.
Know what they want so you can hit that point and be prepared to tell them that you're going to do that and you are that agent, right? So what prior real estate transaction experiences have you had? So how does that help the seller or help you talk to the seller?
My husband just said this week that he did not like his prior real estate. So that was 15, 17 years ago. So in other words, if you've had a bad prior relationship with a realtor, that will set the tone for any future transaction.
They're going to be looking. So it's sort of important to know what they didn't like and important to know what they do like so that you can mirror and match that expectation, right? So how would you like to be communicated with? What would help you with that?
Well, you don't want to text them if they only answer calls or vice versa. You just want to find the best, way to connect with them.
Right. Find out how they get their information and you communicate to them in that way. That way you don't miss communication.
It also makes them feel that they're in control. You don't really care which method they use.
Right.
They feel they're choosing it.
Yes, helps them feel in control. They're choosing how to hear from you. Yes, good point. So when you're looking at all of those, you're going to have the range of buyers in age. And so you're going to have some that don't do anything but text, that they wouldn't answer their phone if their life depended on it. And you have some that just aren't into texting that much. Their little fingers can't get on all those little buttons, but they do like electronic communication. So they're going to be your email client. And there are some of us who still actually really like to talk to a live person. So here's what I would encourage you to do. As the agent, I don't care if you're a millennial and texting is your thing. Answer your phone when it rings. It is important that you do that because you may not have a millennial on the other end, and that can mean the difference between a sale and not a sale. And who is your age range that's most likely to want you to talk to you by phone, a voice? Who is that?
Baby boomers.
Baby boomers. Okay, so 55 and up. Okay, so who's most likely to want to respond to email? Sometimes 55 and up.
The Gen Xers.
Yeah, and maybe that 35 to 40 to 55. Okay, and anybody under 30 is most likely to want to do text. So who do you think has the most money in the highest price range houses? Is it millennials or is it Xers or baby boomers? Okay. So I'm just telling you, it's important to answer your phone. And if you're in a Gen Xer generation, it's likely that they'll want email and phone. They'll toggle between the two. So answer your phone. Okay. How frequently would you like an update on marketing? What is it? How does that help you?
Gives you their expectations.
Their expectations of how often is adequate communication. And some people say a week, and some people say twice a month, and some people say monthly. So most people aren't going to say more than once a week. Most people aren't. So if they're wanting more than that, then what you have to do is reset their expectation, because if you're on the phone with them every day, it's really hard for you to sell their house, because that's all you're doing is communicating with them. And what you have to do is tell them that in a really nice way. Okay? So, but if they're wanting a bi-monthly or a monthly communication and you communicate with them once a week, what does that do? Frustrate them, and it can also exceed their expectations. Okay?
Above and beyond.
Above and beyond. Exceed their expectations. So how frequently would you like an update on showings? I can tell you, most people aren't going to say weekly or twice a month. Most, they want to know as soon as it's done. So, and sometimes that's unrealistic because you have buyer agents that are out there that just shown 15 properties that day. Their highest priority is not going to be to give feedback right away. You know, they need to get through their day, return their phone calls, return their emails, go to their next appointment, and as soon as they get to it, they're gonna do that. So that also, if they answer that question that they wanted after each showing, then you need to reset their expectations. So this page helps you what they're thinking, and so then it helps you to either meet their expectation, reset their expectation, or exceed their expectations. That's what this is all about, that. Okay. So then let's talk about me. This page is customizable. So in your book, you know, you have information about what you can do with this, but if you go to your toolkit on KW Connect, you know, they have the Word document where you can customize this for yourself. So it allows you to give personal information about you and what you have to offer and your unique selling proposition, and it actually helps you to be able to have testimonials and to set yourself up as an expert and qualified to be their agent. So let's talk about what you can put in here a little bit. So about me, and you can insert your value proposition, and you should be going through, if you've not already done that, you know, how to determine what your unique selling proposition is. And even if you don't have years of experience in real estate, you have experience in some industry, and that some industry or your experiences in life helps you with a unique selling proposition that is uniquely you. And that can help you in real estate. And actually you can go to KW Connect and probably Google that up, and you'll find some videos and some things that will help you with USPs, unique selling propositions. So that's kind of your tagline. Mine is Fran has the plan, because over my years of experience, I told you that when I started, I didn't have these systems. I didn't have a toolkit. I had to create them on my own. So I began to put together checklists. My checklist became my plan. Okay, so it became my system and it became my plan. So I focused on listings. So the biggest thing about what I did was made a checklist from the time I had the listing agreement signed to the time I put it on the market. And then once I got it on the market, it was in a contact plan for communicating with the seller about the marketing. And once it went under contract, then I had another checklist that was a plan from contract to close. And I monitored that close. And whenever there was something that fell through the cracks, that got put in as a point into my checklist so that didn't happen again. It also helped me be a little proactive about things that could happen, so that I set my system up in order to prevent that bad thing from happening down the line. And some of that was, making sure I followed up with the buyer's loan process. That got put in mind. So if I called the other agent and they didn't give me the information that I needed to know, or if I picked up a little bit of hesitation, my next call was to that lender, introducing myself and making sure they knew who I was, and following up to make sure the appraisal got ordered, to make sure that the information from the buyer was coming in on time so that we had loan commitment, and that we had loan commitment in plenty of time to take this to the closing table on time. And if that wasn't happening, then I needed to let my sellers know. So those things became a system and a plan for me. So my tagline was Fran has the plan. So that became my unique selling proposition. So you have something from your industry that is unique for you. I had one friend that I sat on a class with a few years ago, and he just could not think of anything that was unique about himself that would give him something special in the market. So the instructor at that time began to ask him some questions. So what do you do? What are your hobbies? What do you think? Well, what he did was he was a pilot, and he flew airplanes. And he had this long history about that. So she helped him hone that into a specialized market for him, for people who were flying enthusiasts. So what I saw after that was he went out and he listed property that had airstrips, airplane hangars. So he had a specialty market that was all about flying. So you can have that for yourself. So this talks about your expertise in a geographic area. And you saw that in the video, right, with, what's his name down in Florida? So, and he said, specialize, hone in on that geographic area, become an expert. Where's the best place to start? Your community, your own backyard, your own neighborhood where you live. And if you don't own a house, go get your parents' neighborhood or where you grew up. That's where they know you. So become special in that neighborhood. And then technology, you're going to learn that here at Keller Williams, your communication. Let them know you're accessible. Let them know you answer your phone when they call unless you're on an appointment. And that you expect them to be clients for life. And you're going to give them that kind of service that makes them want you to be their agent for life. What you've been awarded with or recognized, I don't care if you're in another industry, if you've been in a customer service industry, that is a key piece of serving customers in the real estate industry. So if you've gotten awards for that or any kind of recognition for that, make sure that you put that down. If you've been through a leadership anything, put that down. And then your personal affiliations, your charitable work, your volunteer work, what your interests are, your hobbies are, who your family is, because when you put that down, if you're in front of somebody, you don't know if that other person has that commonality and that connects you. Because when you're dealing with other people, that's what they're looking for, something to connect with. And if you have common interests, common family, common community, common anything, that kind of pulls that together. And then what your commitment is. Nobody really can write this for you. It is what your personal why is for serving them. And that's you. So That needs to be what your passion is to them. And then your testimonials is, don't toot your own horn, let somebody else toot it for you. So find some raving fans and have them write a statement. The best way to get them is to ask for them to write a testimonial. If you don't have any in the real estate industry personally, go borrow a testimonial from the company. Because there's somebody around here that's probably written something that's a testimonial about Keller Williams, the company. So use those. But if you have a testimonial from a previous industry, use that. Use that. And then as you develop clients and get deals and you close deals, make sure that you make a part of your after close system is to get feedback from them on how well you performed and to write a testimonial about that. Ask them for it and begin to post that on your website, on Zillow, on Trulio, and any place else that allows you to post testimonials. Make sure that they're out there because they are, and ask them to star you as well, because those things really do work well. Because people search the web for people who have stars. But when you go buy a product on Amazon or any place else, and or you're looking for those reviews, you go down and look at those different products. And which ones do you go to first? It's the one that has the 4.5 and 5 stars, right? Those are the ones you look at. You don't look at the ones that get 1 or 2. No. So those stars are important. It's important for you in your business. So that's really that About Me page. Is all about your resume. So make sure you have a good one, because you're applying for a job when you go to every listing appointment, whether it be for buyer or seller. All right, so any questions about this pre-list right now? So before we break, I'm going to just hold up what my pre-list package looks like. I do a pre-list every single time. It doesn't matter whether I go in for a one-shot listing presentation or a 2-part. And we'll talk about those when we move into the listing presentation. But I put together the booklet, and I put together a homework packet. You may not want to do this, when you get started, and then you may feel comfortable doing all of it. And over the years, I've just developed it where I don't sit and talk a lot about me anymore. But when I first started, I had a notebook, and I went page by page through my presentation. And through everything I was going to do. I learned to do a pre-list, so it saved me a little bit of time, because I was at my presentation sometimes 2 and 3 hours. It's like, this is way too long. So the pre-list cut that time in half, because when I go, I don't really want to be talking about me and what I'm going to do, and this book helps me get around that, because when I take them this ahead of my listing presentation or on my first stop to look at the home, I give them this. This tells all about me, all about the company. So this has my personal resume, the company's resume, and a little bit of theory about real estate. And this sort of helps them understand what I'm going to be asking for when I come to the listing presentation, and helps them to gather the stuff in advance. So it saves me some time. So I'll have these up here. You can look at them when you're on break, and we're going to take a little bit of one right now before we head into the listing presentation. Now we're going to move into the listing presentation. And we've already played the listing presentation video. And I don't know if you remember from that video, what did Josh Bath say he did when he first walked to the door? Talked about their motivation. Okay? A quick tour of the home. Right. So what you're going to do when you first walk up is, of course, you greet them, and yes, you're going to walk through the home, and then you're going to set your things on the table. Your listing presentation consists of your comparative market analysis, and then after you present that, you're going to close for the listing agreement. So we're going to sort of go through this. We're going to go through this pretty quickly, and then we're going to stop, and you guys are going to practice the listing presentation together. And we have about 30 minutes for that practice. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. But we're going to go through the listing presentation first. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to turn it over to you, and you're going to practice. So your script. And what page, which listing appointment, what is your page? I have page 23. Is that what you have? Okay. So the script is, thank you for inviting me here to apply for the job of getting your home sold. And learning the tonality of your questions is really important. And productivity coaching will help you with that. Okay? So then you're going to put your things on the table. The kitchen table is the best place for your presentation. Why is that? It's a familiar place. What happens there?
You relax.
You relax.
Get together.
You get together.
Those conversations.
You put on weight. You do that too. But typically, when you have something major to discuss as a family, where are you?
Table.
Kitchen table. It's where the kids do their homework. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff happens at the kitchen table. So the kitchen table is a place for decisions. That's the most comfortable place for them to be. And it's also a place that you can set things. The living room and the coffee table is not a good place. You're across the room from one another, too far apart, and you're struggling with things in your lap and whatever. Okay. So if they don't invite you to the kitchen table, lead them to the kitchen table. Okay. And the question and the script is, do you mind if I set my things down in the kitchen? That automatically takes you there. So then you have a home tour checklist. Where do you find it? KW Connect in your toolkit. Thank you. So you keep that handy. You take that, put it on a clipboard. Would be a professional thing to do. And you go through the house and tour it and check off your list. It's really important for you to do that too, because it reminds you to take a look at things that you might get distracted from looking at. When I first started, I created a home tour checklist because my husband was in real estate, and what he did was corporate relocation. So he was taught to be the eyes and ears of the company because they're not here physically, and he needed to put in words what he saw because they weren't here to look at it. So I created a checklist for him to use that I carried over into my own personal real estate business. And so it was to go through each and every room and look at walls, floors, countertops, ceilings, fixtures, fireplaces, the roof, the soffits, the eaves, the foundation, the basement, I mean every single thing. And then ask all the questions about the important components of the house, like heating, cooling, what kind, the age, the hot water heater, anything that I could think of. You don't have to create it. They have it for you. Okay, so don't spend time reinventing the wheel. Use the tools they have in your toolkit. But when you're with the customer or when the potential seller, then you're going through, especially if you're a people person, a high I, then you're distracted by the building relationship. And this checklist keeps you on task while you're doing that. If you're a high D, you're not so much into that detail, you're wanting to run through that house and get it done fast, the checklist will help you detail what you would naturally miss. And then, of course, if you're an SC, you're going to love the checklist anyway and be focused on filling it out. What you're going to have to do is guard against not paying enough attention to your client. Okay? So it works in a lot of different ways. So use that. Once you tour through the house, then what you're going to do is guide them back to the kitchen table. And the listing presentation is where you'll convince the sellers to list with you. It's your opportunity to explain the reasons why they should hire you to list their home and list at the price you recommend. And at the listing appointment, you will create a great first impression, you'll share your price recommendation, and you'll set their expectations. So we're going to go through and review the entire listing presentation. We're going to go page by page so you learn the materials, and then we're going to get to practice. So, nothing wrong with you. When you do this guide to selling your home, you have two, in your book, you have the agent copy, okay? The agent copy has your scripts in it. It has your cheat notes in it. So you can practice that and use that. But when you take them a copy, you, of course, I'm not going to take an agent copy. Make sure you don't make that mistake. So we don't want them to have your cheat notes and your scripts. You know, we just want them to have the regular presentation. So, you know, make sure you pull that copy out. You don't mix it up with your agent copy. So, in my book, I don't have my pages really numbered by the book. They're just numbered by the guide to selling your home. So, you guys help me with what page we're on. Okay, and on 28, does it have, is that your cover page or is it the next page? The notes page. It says, prepared for the,
2 or 42 in the actual print.
okay.
Is that what you're looking for?
That's good to know you had that there. Let me go back a little bit. I need to get my own book so I know what you guys, mine's getting old. Okay. You mind if I borrow your page? Okay, that's the guy, but you had something before that.
No, that was inside it. Oh, do you want this?
Hey, okay. Oh no, we just went through that. Okay, I think we're on track. Alright, so you have your cover page, and then the next page is a place where you personalize the presentation. Again, back in your toolkit, you can go in and then put your client's name, and when they see their name and their address, they know that you worked on this personally for them. So it's whenever you can possibly do that, personalize the book. I do always keep generic copies handy because if I need to grab and go, I don't have time to stop and print one because the time is that tight, or they called me and they need it now and I don't have time to print. I always keep some generic listing packets ready to roll. So before you show up, you're gonna, in preparation, confirm the appointment. You're gonna show up on time or a little earlier. Make sure you have a copy of the listing presentation for the sellers with no script notes, not your agent copy. Have business cards with you, so you make sure you leave them information on how to contact you. Know the comps. So, and I still do this in areas where I go that I'm not so familiar as I am just right in my own backyard. Sometimes I go drive an area. I pull the comps up, look at them. Fortunately today we have Google Maps and Google Earth, and we can like zoom in and look at all that stuff before we ever go out. But a lot of times I will go drive the neighborhood so I can see where the comps are and what's around them, make sure that I've got the right ones. So know the local market conditions. Know whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market or a balanced market. And you'll learn that in the pricing presentation. And then make sure that you know what your average days on market. Does anybody know what they are today? It's probably about 30 days or less. Now, when we were going through the spring and summer market, it's like if it's on the market past 2 weeks, we're in trouble a little bit, okay? But what are we starting to see now? A little bit of shift in the market because those days on market are getting extended a little bit. I'm seeing that with my own listings, and I'm seeing that as I watch the inventory. When I pull it up, few more in the inventory, not as many pending, okay? So it's important to like pull that information up in MLS and watch those statistics. You want to know how many properties on the market, how many are pending, how many have already closed in the last, actually 180 days is a good rule of thumb because the appraisers go back about that length of time. Sometimes in order to though get some comps in a scarce area, you have to pull it to a year, and that's not too bad to go out that long unless your market is changing really rapidly. Then you better not use that year, you better keep it concise, okay? So it's important to know all those numbers and what's your average days on market. So you sort of set those expectations for the seller. So if your average days on market is 30 days or if they're 90 days, but your seller needs to be gone in 30 days, you know, that tells you that you maybe need to price a little bit under where the market is so they can go ahead and get gone. You need to speed up that sales process. So then your script is, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to get your home sold. And then you go back and you review the pre-list package that you left. Now this is where I go back to that before I start my pricing presentation. I'll pick this up and say, because I've already preconditioned them, unless you have questions about me or my company, when I come back, I'm going to be focusing all about you, all on what you need, and I'm going to be focusing on the price and what we need to do to get the home sold. I'm not going to talk about me or my company unless you have questions about that. So as you go through this booklet, write down your questions. So this is the time I would say, what questions, if any, do you have about me or my company? And I answer those. If they've read the book, they've mostly got it, and that will be very short. And then I say, what questions do you have about the homework I left you? Sometimes I will stop and go through that because this gets them used to going ahead and filling out forms and signing stuff. So each little thing is a little close to signing the big deal, you know, the listing agreement. But if they'll sign these little easy papers for me, then it's much easier for them to make the commitment on the listing agreement. Does that make sense? It's little closes that conditions them to the big one. So I stop and answer their questions about this. I try not to spend too awful much time because, you know, I don't want to take up the time I need for the price. But I do answer their questions about this. Then you ask them, have you had a chance to review the guide to selling your home? And if yes, great. And did you complete the questionnaire on the back? Do you have any questions about anything that was presented? And if it's no, well, let's review that really quickly before we move on. And there are some questions at the end for you to answer. Because again, what you want to do is review that last page where it asks them the questions about how to communicate. Because you do want to stop and set those expectations right there, or you'll forget to do it. Okay, it's important that you do it at that presentation. So, then we're moving on. So thank you for the opportunity to get your home sold. My goal is to get you the most money in the shortest time with the least amount of hassle for you. And I look forward to putting my expertise to work for you from listing to close and beyond. Our goals for today: discuss your motivation for selling, define your 10+ experience expectations, review what you can expect from Keller Williams and me, explain the selling process from listing to closing, and review the 3 factors that get your home sold, and then we decide to work together. So, at the bottom is your script. We've got these 6 goals for today's meeting, and we're going to quickly run through those on this page. About goal number 6, let me explain that we can expect one of 3 outcomes for our meeting, from our meeting today. 1, you may list your home with me, and that would be great. 2, you may not list your home with me, and to be honest, that wouldn't be so great. Or 3, I may be unable to take the listing. And you'll kind of get the reaction like they'll think, oh, really? Why? And then what we're going to do is stop and explain to them, well, and the answer is that fair? Well, they're going to ask the question about the last thing. Why would you not want to list the house? It's because we have to come to an agreement to make sure that I feel comfortable and you feel comfortable with what it's going to take to get the home sold. And we need to be able to come to terms to that together, because you do not want to take the overpriced listings, right? Okay, so if you take it overpriced, then you're likely not to get it sold, and you've wasted your time, and guess what? You've also wasted theirs. Okay, so if you can't come to terms on setting it at a price and maybe getting it into the condition that it's going to take to get the home sold, then it may be that the best thing for you is to refer them to some other agent who will take it overpriced, and then let them know that should they decide to bring it into focus later on, that you will be happy, to come back and talk to them. But you need to be in agreement about that. So you need to be able to work together. And then you're going to move into uncovering and prioritizing the seller's needs. So it's all about them. It's all about uncovering their needs. It's not about you. And your job is for them to see you as an expert, the one who knows the listing and selling process, and you're going to advise them and give them input as to what they need to do in order to get the sale and get what they want from the sale. So the rules of communication are to ask a lot of questions. You need to listen more than you talk. And you need to affirm their responses with great, that's wonderful, yes, I agree, and don't assume that they know something. Don't assume that they understand what you've told them. You need to kind of repeat and let them repeat what you've told them so that you know they understand what you're talking about. So, Mr. and Ms. Seller, to do a better job of marketing your property and serving your needs, would you mind if I ask a few questions and take notes? And every time you ask a question, make sure you write their answers down. What does that communicate to them?
You're listening.
You're listening. And what they're saying is important. Yes. So, we're 2, all about you. Why are you moving? What are some reasons people move? Job. Downsize. Upsize. Getting closer to family.
Divorce.
Flat driveway.
One level living, age.
Uh-huh. Yeah. One level living, age.
Maybe parents have to move in.
Yep. What else? Death. Mm-hmm. So, when they tell you their why they're moving, that can change the mood, can it? Because relocating for a job is way different from selling the home because of death or divorce, right? So that helps you to know where to go, and hopefully you will have known that before you ever come into the listing presentation because of your pre-list interview questions. But this also bears repeating in case you missed it. So do you need to sell within a certain time frame? Yes or no? Okay. What is that time frame? Why is that important to you? What will that do for you and your family to sell within this time frame? Do you have a price in mind that you think your home would sell for? Again, it's kind of repeating. What is their expectation so you know how to move through those comps and make sure they understand the market is dictating that price. It's not you. You're just the messenger of the market. Okay? And are you staying in the area after your home sells? And we've kind of talked about that, but that also bears repeating. Why is that important? You either are going to sell them another place, or you're going to refer them to where they're going. Yes. So, I'd like for you to have a great experience selling your home, and that begins with me being very clear on what your expectations are. So I'd like to ask you about that. Okay? So that's your tie down. And so when you're looking at your presentation and you have your agent copy that has your cheat notes in it, please memorize the scripts like they're written. Don't say like, oh, that sounds so canned, or that sounds so this or that. These questions are designed and worded in a way that works. And so, has anybody heard about Diana Kokoska? Yes? Bold. So she teaches the language of sales, and it's based on this neuro-linguistic whatever thing that she talks about is in your RAS and all of that. So she has helped design some of these scripts with tonality and specific words and tie downs and adverbs and adjectives that are designed to get you the results you need from your seller.
Embedded commands.
Yes, embedded commands. So you need to make sure you follow the scripts. What I can't teach you, you have to actually be in a class and kind of learn this, is the tonality of those questions and the inflection and the downflection that you need in certain places and pauses. So if you see an opportunity to take the language of sales, I would highly recommend that. I actually took it 3 times. 3 times. Because I grew up in an environment where my tonality did not work. Okay? I mean, I just grew up in a family that just said commands. I mean, command tonality was normal speech pattern, and didn't ever understand why people reacted to what I said when on the inside I was trying to communicate something well for them, but it wasn't being received that way. And guess what? That's not their problem. That's mine. Right? So the scripts and how they are worded is really important. So then we're going to go through and ask each question on this page, and then thank them for the honesty and for knowing how to deliver 10++ experience that helps you serve them. So let's talk about what this 10++ experience is. And these scales of 1 to 10 are a great exercise for you to learn to give the seller or a buyer. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not so desirable and 10 being extremely desirable, but one thing has to happen in order for this transaction to be a 10 experience for you. So they answer that question. What has to happen? That's for me to get the price I want. for me to be able to move within this period of time. I mean, it could be any number of things. And then you go deeper. Okay, so it's not just that surface thing, but you really want to make them think. This thing has to happen in order for me to have a 10 experience. What's important to you about that? And then they're going to give you the emotion of it. Say, okay, so giving you the 10 is the thing. But why that's important to them is the emotion behind it. The emotion is what's going to motivate them to move. Okay? And why you need to understand that is because you need to keep taking it back there. If they're objecting over the price because they want to price it too high and you need to get it down here, you need to keep moving back to the emotion. You said you wanted to be here in this period of time because that is going to allow your family to be back together. You won't be staying here as a single parent trying to manage the entire family all by yourself and scared to be here. So see, it's the emotion then that allows you to get them to the right place in order so they can accomplish that. Do you get it? Okay. So then if we could just add one more thing, what other thing has to happen in order to make this an experience a 10 plus? So then what you're going to do is up it one. Here's the 10. That's a great expectation. But to 10 plus it, I'd like to have this happen. Get my price and move on time. Okay? So what's important to you about that? It allows us to get the money we need in order to go purchase this home. It allows me to be near my grandchildren much faster. And it can be any number of things. But you keep bringing it back to the emotion, the thing that they want to do, and then what's important to you about that is that emotional factor. And then you take it one level deeper. What would be a 10 plus plus for you? And then what's important to you about that? What will that do for your family? What will that do for you? What's important to you about that? What will that do for you? Okay. Sometimes it's a repeat, but it's in a different way, but it actually allows you to get into the emotion of it. So then, why Keller Williams Realty? And you talk about Keller Williams. Let me tell you a little bit about the company I work with, Keller Williams Realty, and why you've made a great decision to talk to us about selling your home. And you cover the points about KW being #1 in the world, the #1 training company, the best mobile property search app, and accessing hundreds of real estate websites globally. So that's this page. So our reliability, our track record around the world, our knowledge and expertise. So you go over that, and then those are the scripts that you use to go along with that page. And then you continue on with the technology and the teamwork. And then what you're getting from me is the following. Even if you don't have any experience, telling them about this information tells them that you've got a great company backing you up. Okay? If you don't have any sales or any transactions under your belt, you need to use this. Use the company's power and impact and largeness to back you up. And the fact that we're the #1 training company in the world in all industries is huge. And if you have a business person that you're dealing with, that will get that big time. Okay. So then what you get from me is the following. And then you're going to cover the things that they should have already gone over in their pre-list. So this should be a repeat for them. That communication, because they come first. What you're going to provide, the service we agree to and communicate once a week or once a day or a phone, email, or text. You're going to repeat that. Your experience and expertise, your marketing, and the pricing. And we went over all that in the pre-list, so these should be things that you're familiar with. So then you tell them, with my technology, we can conduct your entire real estate transaction online. Our paperless transaction management system means no more faxing papers back and forth or driving across town for missed signatures. No more initial changes to smudged contracts, illegible handwriting, overfaxed contracts, or lost documents. Having the paperwork online provides a level of security for your confidential real estate transaction documents. Every change, initial, and signature is stored and available for up to 7 years, and all parties to a transaction can collaborate in one space. You can be out of town and still keeping the negotiation or closing process moving as long as you have internet access. Now, we're reading this was written some time ago, so you know we've just had lots of breaches in security, so you better be prepared to answer that question. And know enough about dot loop and e-edge, you know, to know how that's secured, because Keller Williams also had a security breach. With some of its agents, we haven't had any security breaches inside of dot loop or e-edge that I know of, but what you need to do is let them know that the agents, you know, now you're changing your passwords daily to make sure, and this is a secured website. It's not just being emailed, you know, through your regular email, but it's a secured website, and you go into an intranet, you know, that sends the documents back and forth. So that it's inside of a secured place and it's not just going email, right? And then the other thing is, of course, if you're dealing with somebody that's older, and sometimes they don't have to be all that much older. I mean, I'm amazed today at some of the age people that I deal with, and they don't have internet. They don't do technology. And some people are afraid of the internet. They're afraid of their information being there. So I would also encourage you, when you go to a listing presentation, unless you know the people well enough to know all they do is technology, you better take yourself a paper copy of everything you have so that they can wet sign, because that's what they're comfortable with. And then you have to come back and make copies of it and make sure they get one. A paper copy. They want a paper copy and a paper file. So you know, we're dealing with a wide range of buyer clients and age and where they are on the internet spectrum. And it's also surprising that you sometimes have a lot of young people and they don't know how to do the e-signature technology. You actually have to walk them through it. And then you're also amazed at some of the older people that you can walk through it pretty easy. I have a 70-year-old lady right now, and she does iPad like nobody's business. The e-signing is new to her, but I can get on the phone and walk her through it. So, and I have some 50-year-olds, I can't do that too. So always make sure you take a paper copy. Okay. So when you say that, make sure you know enough to defend everything that you just said. So you also get technology, staging, and satisfaction. So that's continued from that page, so you'll talk about that. And then the home selling process. If their answer to the pre-list packet question, have you ever bought or sold real estate, was no. No. I've never bought or sold real estate. Now obviously if they're selling one, 99% of the time they bought one, but they could be selling a home that's parents' home because of death, and they actually have never bought a home. So don't assume. Don't assume. But if you get that answer, no. If you go through this assuming they know a little bit about this process, you're going to have deer in headlights looks from your sellers. So you're going to have to get a little bit more detailed about the process and what happens, what you handle, and what they don't have to worry about, and then what their role is in the whole transaction, because it is a partnership. You don't do it alone. You take on a lot of it, but there's pieces of it that they actually have to do. So, and their piece of it is keep their house clean, keep their property clean, keep their yard mowed, to keep the leaves up, to make sure the utilities are on. They need to help take care of the property, and they need to make it accessible for people to look at. Okay? So they do have a role in it, but then you need to explain what happens, what you do behind the scenes. And actually, a lot of people, even experienced sellers, sometimes don't know what we do behind the scenes. And if you don't tell them, they don't know. So when you give them a weekly report, you need to make sure that you're giving them all the little minutia details, because they don't understand that you have been working on those things, that you've been posting on social media every single day, that you've been making phone calls to different people, that you have entered it into the multiple listing, that you've tweaked it, that you have redone your remarks, that you have rewritten the advertising. They don't know that you've done all that stuff unless you tell them. Okay. So, so you explain the process, and then after you cover these three things, then you ask them if they have any questions. And what are these three things? You're committed to selling their home for the most money, the shortest period of time, the least hassle. How many times have we repeated that? About 3 times now. So we're keep telling them that. And you tell them that we've prepared the competitive price recommendation, and it's a step-by-step process, and that when I've earned your business and we agree to move forward with an agreement to hire me to assist in the sale of your home, we move into the next 3 phases of the selling process. That's servicing and marketing. Then you talk about your 14-step plan. Offers and negotiations. So you're going to receive the offer and negotiate on their behalf. And then that contract to close, that long checklist, which is the biggest one that you'll go through, is to get that rascal to the closing table so the sellers can get their proceeds and you can earn a paycheck. So, if they've sold a home, what are you going to say? It may have been a while since you've sold a home, so let's look at what's expected of sellers at the closing table. So you might go through the process of what happens at the closing table, so they need to know what to do and what to plan on. If they've not sold a home, like in 7, 8, 9, 10 years, guess what's new to them? Huh? Due diligence is new to them, yes. They are used to inspections, but not that due diligence deal.
Closing disclosure.
The closing disclosure is very new, okay? And so they don't understand that those 3-day time frames that you have to go through, that you have to make sure that those loan commitments get done 3 days prior to closing, or you're going to be delayed, okay? So you need to make sure that you explain those things to them, because guess what they're doing between due diligence time frame up and closing? Huh?
Shopping.
They're shopping, they're packing. What else is there at their driveway? A moving truck. And if they're budgeting their expenses and the moving truck is in their driveway and they don't know that the closing disclosure didn't get there in time enough for their 3-day window, they're not going to get their money. Their furniture is going to sit on a truck. It's going to cost them ever how many days delay. Who's upset? So, but if you make sure you let them know and keep communicating to them along the way, then they understand where they're at in the process. So it's when they get surprised that they get upset. So you make sure you communicate those things to them. So if it's their first time selling, then of course you're going to have to go through all of those things. So then you ask them if they have any questions about that. I said, always at the end, do you have questions? Let them repeat it back to you so that you know they got it. They got it. They understand. A smooth closing finalizes the sale of your home and makes everything official, known as settlement. Okay, this is when we go to the closing table and sign the papers. That's settlement. Closing happens when what? It's recorded. That's when everybody can get paid. So the closing is when you get paid and the buyer receives the deed and the keys to the home, because you don't get that until it's on record, right? So then you talk about what the sellers commonly pay at closing and what's on that closing disclosure. Of course, the mortgage, any other claims against the property, any special assessments, stamps, the commission, any legal fees. We don't have title insurance premium on the seller side in our world in North Carolina, but there are legal fees like the closing documents getting prepared by the attorney. And sometimes, I always throw in a miscellaneous fee of like $100, because sometimes the mortgage company throws a little fee in there that we don't know about. Like they'll charge a little fee, or the attorney charges, all the attorneys charge a little extra fee, and who's typically choosing the attorney? The buyer. And if they charge an extra fee to take the deed of trust off record, or if they charge an extra fee for faxing and copies and whatever, I don't know that till I get that closing disclosure. So I always throw like a little $100 miscellaneous something in there just to like cover those expenses. Because I'd rather be understated in what they're going to receive rather than overstated. Does that make sense? Okay, so if they get more money than I've estimated, they're happy people. Okay. All right, so, and then make sure that they'll get all copies of the documents for tax purposes, because when they file their taxes the next year, what are they going to need? Copy of the closing disclosure. They're going to need a copy of the closing disclosure for their CPA or whoever's preparing their taxes. And then all the receipts on the home, because there's some things that are repairs that they're able to deduct. So those receipts need to be turned in to their CPA as well. So make sure they have copies of that. So this last point, the closing agent will look over the purchase contract and identify what payments are owed and by whom. Prepare the documents for closing, conduct the closing, make sure the taxes, title searches, real estate commissions, and other closing costs are paid, ensure that the buyer's title is recorded, and ensure that you receive any monies due to you. So those things all happen at the closing table, and it is important that you go over this, because you know what, a lot of people, I'm so surprised every time I get this question. They think they actually get all the money and they have to physically write a check to their mortgage company to pay off their mortgage. They do. I've had that question this year a couple of times. So make sure that they understand that at the closing, they don't have to write a check for anything except if they're paying for the repairs, not within the closing disclosure. So if they're writing a check to the handymen that come and make the repairs from the home inspections, that's all they're paying. Everything else is handled at closing on the closing disclosure. They don't have to worry about their mortgage company being paid off. They don't have to worry about the taxes being paid. They don't have to worry about writing a check to Keller Williams for the commissions. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's all done for them, seamless. Okay? So make sure you go over that so they do understand it. Don't assume that they know it. And let them know that they need to gather together all of the keys, garage door openers, any manuals that they have, and bring those to the closing if they're going to attend closing, or leave them someplace inside the house as a designated place. If they attend closing physically to sign their portion of the documents, instead of having you do it for them, they need to bring a picture ID. So prep them for that. They show up at closing, they're going to need some sort of driver's license or authorized picture ID like a passport or something, just like the buyer does. Okay. Most of the time, I have maybe 1 out of every 100. So I'll tell my sellers, you are certainly welcome to come to closing. You have every right to come to closing, and you can sign all your documents then. But if you choose to, you do not have to come to closing. We will automatically prepare with the seller documents a limited power of attorney that allows me to go to closing and sign all the incidental paperwork in your behalf, collect your money, so that I can get it delivered to you. And then you can continue to move and be on your merry way. I maybe have 1 in 100 that will say, oh, I do want to go to closing. I want to meet the buyer. And when they say that, make sure you let them know they may not meet the buyer. Because when you go to some attorney's office, the seller goes in and does their part, they usher them out. The buyer comes in, does their part, they usher them out. Never the twain shall meet. So if that's their purpose, make sure that they do know that. And sometimes they're just interested. You know, it's the first time they've done it. They just want to see what it's like. And once they've done it one time, if they don't ever have to do it again, they won't. Because it's not worth the time they spend when they could be using it to finish packing, finish cleaning the house, or, you know, getting their things in order to be on their way where they're going. So they have way too many other little details to take care of than to just sit at a closing table to sign 2 or 3 little pieces of paper. And they're not going to get their money then. They have to wait. So some of them think they'll come to closing because they'll get their check. They don't want to wait for their check. As soon as the closing is over, they think they'll get it. So you need to make sure that you communicate to them what happens in the closing process. It's settlement, then what the attorney has to do in order to get that ready for the lender to release, you know, a funding number. And then the attorney also needs to make sure that he has all the funds in his trust account. And then when all of that happens, then he'll record it. And you need to also communicate to them that most of the time that happens on the same day, but sometimes it can be the next day or the next business day. Which is also a reason that I don't like closings on Friday, and I particularly don't like closings on Friday on a holiday weekend. Because if closing takes place at 3:30 or 4 o'clock on Friday on a holiday weekend, and that sucker doesn't get recorded, guess we're Tuesday. And you have a buyer mad because they can't move in because we won't give them the keys, or you're eating your fingernails for 3 days because somebody has moved in. And that thing's not recorded, and that seller's still on the hook.
Money either.
They don't get their money. Yep. And somebody's living in their house. So just, you know, make sure you go over those details. They're, like, important. 3 factors to point out that make the difference between getting the home sold and having it sit on the market with little attention from buyers, and all 3 can be handled strategically to get the job done quickly. Its location and condition of the home are the first things that attract buyers and their agents. And you can't change the location, and you can't change the condition. Or you can't change the location, but you can change the condition of the home so that it's appealing as possible. Marketing the home is critical, and that's where my expertise comes in, and I will review my comprehensive marketing plan with you in a moment. And we'll also discuss the price. It's determined by what buyers are willing to offer and how to price the homes that will get sold. How do you know what buyers are willing to pay? The market. What kind of market?
Comparable market.
Comparable market. And what's in that?
Sold properties.
Sold properties. Sold properties tell you what a buyer's willing to pay because they've paid it and it's closed, right? It also tells you what a seller has willing to contribute in order for that buyer to purchase it. So you'll go into some neighborhoods and you'll see sold for this price, But seller made this $2,500, $4,000, $5,000 contribution to the buyer's closing costs in order for these deals to work. It's important for a seller to know that. If they're in an area that's particularly FHA and VA, most of those buyers are going to want closing costs paid for them. And if you go in and show that all the competition around them has sold and sellers have paid that, then that sets an expectation that probably they're going to have to do the same thing. But so many sellers say, nobody paid anything for me and I'm not going to pay any of their closing costs. Well, it's not about those terms. It's about the bottom line you stick in your pocket. So you need to have scripts and prepared for those objections, okay? So, it's all about the condition, marketing, and price. Buyers are attracted or distracted immediately by the condition of the home, from the curb appeal to every room in the house to the backyard, it all matters. Buyers rank condition as one of the top 3 things they consider when choosing a home. They want a move-in ready, model-like home. So buyers are trying to see themselves in the property they visit. They are trying to imagine a wonderful life inside your house. So our goal is to help them by preparing the house so that nothing distracts them from being able to do exactly that. This means great curb appeal, a clean interior with as few repairs as possible. After all, daydreams don't often come with hammers. And as a few reminders as possible that someone else is living here, and that includes not being here during showings. So once we agree to work together, I'll advise you on how to properly prepare your home with staging to accomplish this. Does that sound good? So then we're going to go over those tips for staging and ask them what? Any questions? Any questions? So then you're going to go over this page, great condition sales. You're going to go through every bit of that. And then talk to them about why these things are important. And it continues onto the back page. And then we're going to go into marketing. You're going to review the 14-step marketing, and it's all about pricing, showing the home in the best possible light, the for sale signs, responding to buyer inquiries, optimizing the internet presence, the multiple websites through which you'll market, and you make sure you use that page to get all those, what do they call them? Where we syndicate to all the search engines. So their house is everywhere. Your app. It's important to show them your app and how that works and how you give that to buyers who are, looking for homes, and how they can push that button when they're right in front of it and get the details on it. The flyers and comment cards that you'll create, the just listed notices to neighbors, target marketing to real estate agents in the community, because what you have to do is sell the agent first, then the agent will sell their buyer, and then we all need to sell the appraiser, right? In that order. So then include the home in company or MLS tours. Are y'all doing that? You are? Touring houses? Do you do it together as a group? No? Okay. So that's something we used to do.
Yeah, old school.
Caravan. Yes, you remember? You must have sold a house and the caravan came through. Yeah. So we used to do that. All get together after a team meeting or a sales meeting. We'd pack up into cars and we would ride through and tour every new listing. The internet and technology has changed that a lot, because now we can go online, we can tour it that way. But there's nothing to prevent you from it being an electronic tour. So, with video walking tours and whatever, you can get together inside of a room and you can electronically tour the home without physically having to drive there. So that can replace this if you chose to do that. schedule the open house. When is that most effective? The open house. Yeah, on Sunday. When you get the listing, when is it most important to have that? When is it most effective to have the open house?
Just within 3 days after it goes live.
With as quickly as you can after it goes active. When do most people have them?
Sunday.
On Sundays they do. When else do they have them?
Saturdays.
Saturdays? Have you ever seen an agent that after the house has been on the market 60 or 90 days, then they have the open house? It's like last ditch effort to try to get it sold. The listing is stale by then, guys. So when you want to have your open house is when you would get the most traffic. You're going to get the most traffic when it's new on the market, and it is exciting to people because it's new. So the best time to hold it is as quickly as you can after you first get it listed. It goes live on the market. Target active buyers and investors. So you should be creating a pool of people in your database that are active buyers and investors, and when that goes on the market, you make a phone call to them. If it's not their house, ask them to see if they know somebody that would be interested in it. So try to get referrals from them and then provide weekly updates. So that's your 14-point marketing. And then you're going to get global exposure, and here's your page. And then you're going to go over the price to sell. So, you're probably interested in what your house is worth, right? So, well, the price is determined by the market. That is what buyers are actually offering and competing sellers are actually willing to accept based on recently sold properties. The market fluctuates from state to state, city to city, and even area to area, neighborhood to neighborhood. So depending on the number of homes for sale at any given time, the market will either favor the buyer or the seller. So our current market favors what?
Seller.
It's a seller's market. That's when the inventory is less than 6 months supply. We've just come through a time when the market was like less than 3 months supply. So it was really a huge seller market, and you saw that in the number of offers that we had. So that means there are more buyers than properties for sale, so sellers are emboldened to ask for more than the market price. And it's easier for sellers to sell a well-priced house, and properties priced right can go fast because buyers have fewer choices and they must act quickly in order to get the home they want. In a buyer's market, the inventory is what? Greater than 6 months. That means there are more homes for sale in the market than there are buyers to purchase them. And then sellers have less options and buyers are more in control. So then the sellers have to price the home even more strategically to make it attractive for those few buyers that are looking, and then they must be prepared to negotiate to get the home sold. So many sellers make the mistake of pricing their homes. You may have even noticed some of your neighbors make those mistakes in the past, but smart sellers understand price is determined by the market. So a lot of sellers will price their home by what they want for it, or by what they need for it, or by what they want to go purchase with it. But none of that affects the value of the property. The only thing that determines the market value is what buyers have been willing to pay. You need to make sure you get that point across right here. So that's what this whole page is about, and this script goes along with this page. And so that's where you're at. And then you go over your comparable properties that you prepare in advance. And here's your script. Mr. and Miss Seller, the truth is, buyers are very smart and informed about the market, especially those that have been looking for a while. They've been looking online at property websites, and will know what similar homes in your neighborhood are listed for. And buyers are always looking for that great home at that right price. So I've done some in-depth research and analysis looking at the comparable properties that have sold recently. And look at how long they take to sell and how much the competition there is on the market. So let's take a look at those comparable properties I've included here, and we'll be able to determine the value of your home, okay? So that's when you go into the CMA. And you talk about then this price recommendation. And you go through that script about what that is. And this is going to make a lot more sense when you get into the CMA part of Ignite, which should immediately follow this, I'm guessing. Is that your next module?
Yes.
So you just go through this recommendation that after studying and taking into account the characteristics of their home, its setting, and the averages in their neighborhood, that here's the price recommendation. And the primary goal, again, you're repeating it, is to get them the most money. And then you're also going to go back to that emotional tie to get them moved in this amount of time in order to get your family back together, in order that you're not left here as a single parent, yada, yada. You see where that, you tie back that emotional thing that motivates them to do what they need to do to accomplish their goal. It's always about their goal. And then the listing agreement. After you get the agreement, because if you got your comps right, and you got your scripts right, they're going to say yes, right? Because you've already had to say little yeses by signing this other paperwork. So we're in agreement about the price, and it sounds like all your questions have been addressed. So based on everything we've discussed, I feel like we have a meeting, the makings of a win-win relationship. Would you agree? Are we ready to move ahead on this? Is there anything we need to do before we get started? Would you like for me to handle the sale of your home? Great. Are you ready to decide to choose me to represent you in the sale of your home? Any one of those can be those tie-down closes. And once you have a yes, then you push that paperwork in front of them or the electronic signature and let them go through and click and sign or sign your paperwork. And if they say no, then you have to go into objection handling mode. Okay? And then take it back to the close. And how many closes? How many closes?
What do you mean?
Try to close at least 5 times. Try to close at least 5 times. So, and that also depends on, you know, who your seller is. So then it's important for you to understand that disc so you know who you're dealing with. Your high Ds, you know, they're like to go ahead and make a quick decision. Your I's, as long as they like you, they're probably going to sign the paperwork. The S's, if you're their friend, and they know that you're going to work for them and you're their friend, they're going to sign. That C is that engineer accountant type that likes details, that likes things in a box. They like to process. Your S's like to process too, but still if you're their friend, they'll probably do it. But that C, if they're objecting and objecting and objecting, and you've answered it and there's no other thing, then what they need to do is process. Give them all the paperwork and let them read through it. You can come back the next day and look on it. They like to read for themselves. You get it? Right. So sometimes it's important to know who your personality is. Okay, so now, you know, you just move into, after they sign it, what to expect next. I'm going to put the sign, you're going to put it in the lockbox. We're going to hire the stager, hire the camera person, and you heard Josh Bath go through that in his, what he does in a presentation. So you see, he has all those people that's on his team, the stager, the photographer. You know, he probably has somebody to come out and actually do the measuring too. So you can hire an appraiser that's kind of on the retirement side of that, just have them go out and measure it, do those things for you. So you can go do the next listing presentation while they're doing all of that. But just set up those expectations. Okay. So we're going to be a little bit late. Sorry, we started late. But I want you to get together and pair up in 2s and 3s here, and I want you to go through the listing presentation together.
What y'all doing? Having fun?